Hey everybody, I'm Connor with polyglossa.com. Welcome to this English Grammar Essentials seminar. In today's seminar, we're going to look at the usage of these four phrases. Used to, be used to, get used to, and usually. So, today you're going to learn about these four phrases. Before we start, remember that at polyglossa.com we have many seminars. We have grammar essential seminars, we have listening practice seminars, and we have pronunciation seminars. All of our seminars are just $1. All right, they're cheap, they're easy, and they're helpful. All right, so make sure you sign up for all the seminars you need at polyglossa.com. Also, remember to follow us on Instagram at Polyglossa Languages and find us on YouTube. Okay, so let's get started. Well, these four phrases are always confused with each other by non-native English speakers. Maybe you look at them and you say, I don't know the difference between them. And you're not alone. That's very normal because they're similar to each other. Okay? So the goal of today's seminar is for you to be able to tell the difference between each one and for you to be able to understand what a native speaker is saying when we use one of these phrases in our sentence. And hopefully, you'll be able to use them in your own sentences too. Okay? So, we're going to start with the first one, used to. All right? So, let's erase all this here. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at a few target sentences for today. And the goal is for you to be able to understand why we're using this phrase in that sentence. You should be able to understand the meaning and maybe even say your own sentences similar to the target sentence. Okay? So our first target sentence is this one. I used to watch that show all the time. Okay, let's take a look at this sentence. First of all, I want to note that the word show in American English refers to a TV program. It doesn't need to be a physical TV. It could be a computer. It could be something you watch on Netflix on your computer. But any program that is not a movie is a show. So just to give you that note, because most students will always say series, series, series. In American English, we usually say show for anything like that. Okay? So, I used to watch that show all the time. All right, what does I used to mean? When we use used to, this means that we had a past habit. Okay? A past habit. This means that now we don't have the habit, right? So now, no. Okay? So we had this habit in the past and now we don't. So here, I used to watch that show all the time. So here I'm not saying when it was, but because I use this phrase, used to, you can know for sure that I'm talking about the past. This means that in the past, I watched that show all the time, but now I don't watch that show. Okay? So it's always about an action, a habit that you did in the past that now is different, right? So now I don't watch that show. In the past, I always watched it. I watched that show all the time, right? Does that make sense? So it's a past habit that you no longer have. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's a habit that you didn't have in the past and now you do have it. For example, he didn't used to eat sushi. Okay? So, this sentence is also a sentence using used to, but with the negative. He didn't used to eat sushi. This means that in the past, he didn't eat sushi. He didn't have this habit. But now he does eat sushi. He does have this habit, right? So it doesn't matter if it's positive or if it's negative. It has the same meaning, just positive or negative, one or the other. It's a past habit that you did have or that you didn't have, and now you don't have it or you do have it, right? It's the opposite of whatever positive or negative phrase you used. Right, in this one it's positive. I used to watch that show, so now that means I don't. In this one, it's negative. He didn't used to eat sushi, and now he does. It's the opposite. You see that? Good. So now let's see an example of a sentence that is not correct. Sorry. So things that I hear sometimes. For example, if you say, I'm used to watch TV every night. I hear sentences like this all the time from my students. They'll say, I'm used to watch TV every night. Why is that incorrect? Can you tell? There's something different, right? What did they add here? They added the verb to be. This is not correct. This is a bad sentence. This makes no sense in English, okay? So never say this, I'm used to watch, okay? We do have the phrase be used to, but we're not there yet. We'll see that in a second, okay? This is wrong. We do not use be used to for a habit that we used to have, right, in the past, okay? So, let's see here if you understood. So here, we don't use the verb to be, right? So this is our verb, right? We don't have I'm, okay? So if it's the positive, it's I used to, and if it's negative, I didn't used to. Whoops, that would be like this. I didn't used to, okay? So, I used to, I didn't used to, all right? So, if this is a negative sentence, you don't use I'm not used to. I'm not used to. Whoops. This is wrong, right? For this phrase right here, right? This does not have the verb to be, okay? So, think you got that? If we're talking about a past habit, we use used to, all right? Now let's look at the next one. Be used to, all right? So let's see our example sentence here. Okay. I'm used to waking up early, so this new work schedule is no problem for me. Okay, let's see this sentence. So here I have something, some action, some habit that I am accustomed to. So when we say be used to, it means that we are accustomed to something. Something is normal or usual for us now, right? It's not the same as used to. Used to means it was a past habit. It means that now we don't have it. This is a completely different meaning. This be used to, right? If I say I'm used to, this means that we have the habit now. It means that we are accustomed to this now. But there's one thing that you need to know, is that we only use this phrase, I'm used to, if you're giving the context to it. So here, right, I have an explanation. So this new work schedule is no problem for me. So I'm saying I have this habit of waking up early, right? So I'm used to that, right? So it doesn't matter if I need to change my work schedule. I'm giving extra context. I'm giving an extra piece of information here. If I just had, let's pretend I erased all this here, and I just had, I'm used to waking up early, this probably wouldn't be said by a native speaker, right? Because we're looking for some other information. If you just say, I'm used to waking up early, without any context, that's wrong, right? You're saying it for some reason, right? I'm used to waking up early because in my last job, I woke up early, right? So you're giving some other information. Why are you saying this? Maybe you're giving the reason why you're accustomed, or maybe you're saying this to answer someone else's question. Like if someone says, oh, will this new work schedule be difficult for you? No, I'm used to waking up early, so this new work schedule is no problem for me, right? We have some other piece of information, some context. If you're only talking about a habit that you have, you don't use this, right? If you just, without any other context, want to say, you know, I have this habit, we don't use this phrase, right? We'll learn about that in a second, but this phrase we do not use. We use this if we have other information, a reason why, or something that this affects, like this right here, right? So that's when we use it. We don't use it just by itself, okay? So we don't just say, I'm used to waking up early, right? We don't just say this sentence by itself unless we have other context. If the person asked you, will this job be a problem for you? Right? You're gonna have to wake up early. Is this gonna be a problem? No, I'm used to waking up early, right? You have the context of the person's question, right? They're asking you for clarification if you have a problem with waking up early, and you say, no, I have this habit, so that is not a problem. You have other context. But if you're just saying this by itself, oh yeah, I'm used to waking up early, without any context, that's wrong, right? So, one other thing to note here is that we use the ing afterwards. So many students will say something like this, I'm used to wake up early. They'll say sentences like this. This is wrong. We don't say I'm used to wake up. We always use the ing after be used to, right? I'm used to waking. I'm used to going. I'm used to doing, right? So one other sentence, we might say, I'm used to eating dinner at 6 p.m., right? Of course, we need some other context, right? Maybe the person says, do you normally eat dinner late? Oh, I'm used to eating dinner at 6 p.m. because my family always ate dinner at 6 p.m., right? I'm giving more context there, why I'm accustomed to this, right? But notice the ing, that's really important. I hear this mistake almost every single day of my life. I hear students say, I'm used to eat. That is incorrect, that is a bad sentence, okay? So make sure you don't make that mistake, all right? So, I think you got this now. Let's go on to our next one, which is get used to. All right, so now we're going to look at get used to. Okay, so here's our target sentence. This one is a question. How long did it take you to get used to the cold weather? Okay, that's a question mark there. How long did it take you to get used to the cold weather? Now we have a new phrase, get used to. This one is similar to our last one. It's similar to be used to. However, with this one, we've got the word get. So we're talking about the transformation. We're talking about becoming used to, right? So what this is saying, how long did it take you to get used to? What I'm asking is that before the person was not accustomed to cold weather, and now he is. So there's been a transformation. So I'm asking about that transformation. How long did it take you to get used to it, right? So I wouldn't say, how long did it take you to be used to, right? That's not correct because here we have a transformation. Be used to is not talking about a transformation. It just means now. I'm used to the cold weather because I live in Chicago, right? So if it's a transformation, we substitute the word be for the word get, okay? So how long did it take you to get used to the cold weather? That means before he was not used to it. He was not accustomed. And now he is, right? It's also not correct to say, how long did it take you to used to the cold weather? Right? We can't leave off this word. We need this word, get used to. Okay? So let's look at another sentence similar to this one. For example, don't worry, you'll get used to life in the big city. Okay? Don't worry, you'll get used to life in the big city. So in this situation, I'm probably talking to someone who just moved from a smaller city or a smaller town to a big city. And maybe they're a little nervous, or maybe it's a little difficult for them. It's hard for them to adapt. And I might say this, don't worry, you'll get used to life in the big city. Right? So here we have a transformation, get used to. That means right now the person is not used to it. They are not accustomed to it, but I'm saying that they will. They will have a transformation from not being accustomed to being accustomed, right? Don't worry, you'll get used to life in the big city. Also, let's take a look at what happens if we have a verb, right? So here, let's pretend we say living. Don't worry, you'll get used to living in the big city. Now, I don't want to say life. I don't want a normal noun. I want a gerund, right? I'll get used to some action. So what do? We add the ing, just like with the last one, right? Remember, I am used to waking up early, right? You'll get used to living in the big city. So it would be incorrect to say you'll get used to live, right? That is not correct, right? We do not use the base form of the verb. We use the ing, right? The gerund form. Get used to living. This can be tricky for students because we have to and ing, but don't worry, you'll get used to it after a while. Sometimes we have that in English because this is one phrase and that's another one. These are not connected, right? It's this and it's that. for that reason, we can have to here and then ing there, right? So not a big deal, okay? So this is all about transformation. You weren't accustomed and now you are, right? So we're gonna look at one more now. The last one, very important, is usually, okay? Usually. So let's take a look at our example sentence here. We usually eat lunch at 1 p.m. We usually eat lunch at 1 p.m. So, what am I saying with this sentence? With this sentence, I'm saying that I normally do this action. We normally eat lunch at 1 p.m. So, it's saying that now, in this moment, I have this habit. This is my custom, right? We usually eat lunch at 1 p.m. You've probably noticed that this is a similar usage to be used to, right? You might be asking yourself, what's the difference between usually and be used to? Well, in some cases, there might not be any difference, but in other cases, there is a difference grammatically. So if you remember, with be used to, we needed some other context, right? We needed some other piece of information, right? Maybe we were answering a question that someone asked us, or we were giving a reason for our habit, or we were explaining how our habit will not affect or will affect something else. We have some other information. But if we use the word usually, we don't need any other context. You can always use usually to talk about a present habit, right? We usually eat lunch at 1 p.m. It's just something I do in my normal schedule, right? So if someone asks me, oh, can you describe your morning schedule? And I say, okay, well, I wake up at 7 on most days. I usually take a shower and I usually eat breakfast at 7:30 a.m., right? That is good. That's a good usage of usually, right? But if the person said, describe for me your morning routine. Well, I'm used to waking up at 7. I'm used to taking a shower and I'm used to eating breakfast at 7:30. That's not correct, because now we're not giving any additional information. We don't need to use that be used to there. We just want to use this one. This one is our go-to for habits, right? If you have a habit right now and you want to talk about this habit, describe this habit, you want to use this one most of the time, right? You want to use this one only when you're explaining something with extra information, right? Oh, no, my last job required me to wake up early, so I'm used to waking up early now, right? So I'm explaining something else, right? I'm not just saying, I'm used to waking up at 7, right? I wouldn't say that by itself, okay? So, we usually eat lunch at 1 p.m. Let's look at another sentence. I usually take a shower. At night. So, I'm just telling you my habit. Some people take showers in the morning. Some people take showers at night. I usually take a shower at night, right? This is just my habit, right? I usually do this. I normally do this. It doesn't mean I always do it, but it means I normally do it, right? So notice the verb tense afterwards. We just have the base form of the verb. We usually eat. I usually take, right? One more example sentence. My mom usually comes over for Christmas. Okay? So, I'm just talking about an action that my mom normally does. She normally has this habit. My mom usually comes over for Christmas, right? And now we just have the S because third person singular, right? My mom comes. So this word is very important. I want you to try to identify it when you hear native speakers speaking and using it. And I want you to try to use it in your speech. Why? Because I have many students, most of my students, underuse this word, right? They should use it more, but they don't. They accidentally use one of the other phrases. They say, I used to, or I'm used to, when they shouldn't. They should be using this word right here to talk about their habits, right? So if you're talking about your habits, you want to use that word, usually, right? This word is your best friend when you're talking about habits, okay? So, does that make sense? You understand how to use this one, and do you understand all four? Well, let's just do a little practice before we end. I'm going to give you an example sentence, and I want you to try to fill in the blank with the correct one of those four phrases, okay? So here's the first one. I miss going to my grandparents' house. All right, so now I want you to fill in this sentence, right? I'll leave the first part blank, and let's fill in the second part. Over there every weekend, okay? So, here we have the sentence, I miss going over to my grandparents' house. I wish I could do this more, right? So what's the second part? What could we say? I miss going to my grandparents' house. All right, let's start with the I. I blank over there every weekend. Which one do you think it is? I usually go over there. I used to go over there. I'm used to going over there. Or I get used to going. Which one? What do you think? We would say, whoops, that's not right. I used to go. I used to go over there every weekend, right? In the past, I had that habit. I went over there every weekend, but now I don't have the habit, right? I don't go over there. So now I miss doing this, right? I wish I could do this more because now I don't have this habit, right? All right, next one. Next one. All right, my job requires a lot of communication, so I'll leave this part blank and let's put to talking to people. All right, which one would we say here? My job requires a lot of communication, so I what? What do you think? So I am used to. So I'm used to talking to people, right? So here I'm explaining my habit with other context, right? With other information, right? My job requires a lot of communication, so I'm used to talking to people, right? Good. All right. Two more. Let's see our next one right here. Okay, so I'll just say the first part and you can fill in the second part. I used to live in the countryside, but I just moved to New York. All right, so I need blank living in the city. All right, I used to live in the countryside in the past, but I just moved to New York. I need blank living in the city. What do you think? I need to get used to. I need to get used to living in the city. I need to transform, right? I need to develop the habit. Right now, I'm not accustomed, but I need to be accustomed. So I need to transform and get used to living in the city. Okay? And last one. This one I don't need to write. If I just say, for example, I want to tell my friend that I don't like going outside a lot. I don't spend a lot of time outdoors. I could say something like, I blank spend time indoors. What could I say? Right? I don't really like going outdoors. I blank spend my time indoors. I usually, right? I usually spend time indoors. I usually spend my days indoors. I usually spend most of my day indoors, right? I could use any of those examples, right? Remember, with usually, you're just giving an example of any habit that you have. You don't need any other context. You're just saying something that you normally do. I normally spend time indoors. I usually spend all day indoors, right? So how was that? Was it difficult? Easy? Did you understand the difference? Don't worry if it's still a little bit confusing. That's okay. That's why you're here, you're practicing. And my aim for you, what your goal should be, is to start to identify these when you're listening and when you're reading. Notice when a native speaker says, I used to, versus I'm used to, right? Because most students confuse those two. So I want you to hear that difference, right? And say, oh yeah, now I hear how he's using that. Be used to, or usually. Make sure you start using usually to describe your habits, right? So I want you to start to notice these, identify them when you're listening, and then maybe start to practice with yourself and say these in your own speech, right? And really think of the difference between them. Don't think of them as, oh, they're all so similar. No, really focus on their differences, okay? All right, so we're going to stop there for today then. You did well, I'm assuming. So remember to follow us on Instagram at Polyglossa Languages and find us on YouTube. Look up Polyglossa. And of course, at polyglossa.com, we have many seminars. We have grammar essentials seminars, and we have seminars for listening. We have seminars for pronunciation. So make sure that you sign up for all the seminars that you need, okay? They're only $1 each, all of them. So they're cheap, they're easy, and they're helpful for you, okay? So I'm Connor with polyglossa.com, and I'll see you next seminar.